So what all we have learned in index and match in this section so far has finally led us to this point. And this is the most important example. Now, this is the same file which is what we worked on when we were learning VLOOKUP, the very first lecture. And if you remember, we had done a simple VLOOKUP here, choosing the name as a lookup value, C3 to E13 as our table array, column number 3 as the sales column, and then an exact match. Now, if you remember, I had also told you that in a VLOOKUP, you cannot look on the left of your lookup column, which means that if you wanted to find out the customer ID, it would not have been possible for you to do that. But index match doesn't have that limitation. So let's see how we can get the same result using index and match. Let's first get the sales value and then we will get the customer ID as well. Now to get the sale value, we can write equal to index. Now my array here is going to be, watch carefully, I don't need to bother and select starting from C. I can start selecting from column B as well. It doesn't matter. And you will see in a moment why. Now, what is the row number? My row number here is going to be Darren Powers searched in the entire column C, which means I'm using a match to search for Darren Powers in C3 to C13. And this would be an exact match, which remember in match function, the exact is written as a 0, not as a false. A lot of people make this mistake. If you write a false here, then you will get an error. So please remember, in a match function, 0 is what denotes an exact match. Now it says what is the column number. So far in our entire blue area, which is my array, we have searched for the row number. So for Darren, it will be row number 2. And I want the sale value, right, which would be column number 4. So we can simply write 4 here. And as you can see, we get the same result that we were getting earlier. Now you might be wondering, but what's the big deal? We could have done this much more simply with the VLOOKUP. Here's the best part. Watch this. If I wanted to find out customer ID, I can just change my column number to 1. And despite the fact that customer name, which is my lookup column, is column number 2, it is still allowing me to go and find out a result from column number 1. And as you can see, now using my customer name, which is column C, I can go to the left and find out column number B, which is fantastic. This means that you don't have to make any manual changes to your data set. Typically what people do is they select the column and they shift it around for us to be able to get the right results using a VLOOKUP. The advantage of using index match is that the columns can be to the left or to the right. It doesn't matter. You will still get the right result. And just to complete this example, if I wanted to find the segment, you notice that right now the formula is not linked to my segment, right? So I just want to add a cost column as well. And let's just keep some random numbers here. Excellent. So let's say the user has to decide between cost and sales. Now this is how he would do it. If I wanted sales, obviously, in fact, let me also make this F13. Excellent. Now remember, if I wanted to find out sales, the column number would be 1, 2, 3, and 4. If I wanted cost, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's just quickly check that. If I make it 4, it gives me 902, which is correct. And if I go and make this 5, then it gives me 141, which is also correct. But remember, we want this to be dynamic, so we can use another match function. And in this one, we want Excel to find out the column number for us automatically, which means I will first tell it that the column that I want is called sales. The row in which all the columns are written is B3 to F3, and I want to do an exact match. So think of it this way. My first match is telling me that in this entire column, so if you notice here, in this entire region, which is the correct row number, and then the second match is telling me that in the entire top row, which is the correct column number for cost. And once I know that Darren Powers and cost, we know the row number and the column number, we will get the result. So if you notice, The first match is telling us that Darren Powers is the second row, and the second match is telling us that cost is the fifth column. So when I give the number 2 and 5 to my index function, we get the sale value. And if I make it cost, then we get the cost values. Amazing, right? Now this means that you don't have to bother and find out the column number manually. You can do this dynamically. So we've done a lot of things in this example. So a quick recap. Number one, I showed you how you can get a result from the left of the lookup column. That is not a limitation in index match. And I also showed you how you can use a second match to find the column number automatically without having to manually go and look for the correct heading and then calculate the column number. Now imagine we wanted to do the same example using range names. So I'm not removing this. What I'm doing is to simply copy this to the right, and I do the same thing using a range name. All right. In fact, let me keep it below so that you can see all the results at the same time. So let me just copy this here. Excellent. Now we need to have three names with us. One would be for the entire table, one would be for the column, which is customer name, and one would be for the top row, which is the heading. So my entire table in my name box, I'm going to call as, let's just call this entire underscore table. My customer name can be called as CUST name. And finally, my heading can be called as just heading. If we go to the formula name manager box, we notice that there are three names that I've given: customer name, entire table, and heading. Now, how will the formula improve? It will become much simpler now. We can write equal to index. Now remember, we have already given a name to the array, so we can simply write entire table. In my match function, we are searching for Darren Powers, but we're not searching in C3 to C30 now. We can simply write customer name. This is an exact match. And then finally, I'm searching for the heading that I want, which is sales. And I'm searching for this in not B3 to F3. We're searching in simply my heading. And as you can see, we get the exact same result. If I change sales to cost, the result changes. And look at the improvement. I have converted this long, complicated formula where a lot of errors can happen into such a simple formula where we're simply writing the range reference and we're not bothered with the actual cell references, right? So this again is something I would like all of you to practice. Do remember, it doesn't mean that you should always use range names. Of course, learning the first formula is also very important. I'm just giving you an alternative. Now, since we're doing this, let's also do the third one. Imagine we were working with a table. So I'll copy this one more time. And let's say that we convert our entire data set into a table, which is insert and table. My table already has headers, so I'll keep the box ticked and we click on OK. Let's change the table design, table name. So we'll call this my underscore table. Now this is how the formula will work. We will say equal to, let me just remove all the values first. We will say equal to index. Now my array is simply my table. Then I write a match function where I'm searching for Darren Powers. And where are we searching? We are searching in my table, but in a specific column. So I open a bracket and then I can choose the column that we want, which is customer name. And this would be an exact match. And then I say match. This time I'm searching for the heading called sales. And now where are we searching? Again, in my table, we are searching only in the headers, which is hash headers. Now remember, these column names and the all data headers and totals reference has not been given by me. All we did was to give one single table name, and then all of this is working automatically. So we select the headers, make it 0, and as you can see, we get the same result as earlier. And if I change my sales to cost, it works perfectly. So what I'll do is I'll simply copy all the three different formulas that we've written, and I'll keep them next to each other so that you can compare and see which one of these you would want to use. So let me just quickly take a screenshot of the second one, and we do the same thing with the third one as well. Excellent. So as you can see, the first formula that we wrote was using cell references. So we had B13, F13, C3, C13, B3, F3. In the next one, we created names, which made it much simpler for us. And in the third one, we went one step ahead and we said, why should we give three names when we can just give one name to the entire table? And then I can just refer to different parts of that table by enclosing it within brackets. Now remember everybody, there is no right or wrong here. If you ask me, personally, I use all the three on different occasions. It really depends on which one you want to use. So typically I use the first one when I'm doing some financial modeling because this one gives me individual control over every single cell that I'm selecting. I use the range name when I am in a hurry and I know that my original data set is not changing very often. And I use the table in cases where I have a very large number of workbooks with which I'm working. And maybe I have 10 different tables and it's very difficult to keep a track of all the tables. But like I said earlier, don't feel compelled to work with the range names or with the table. Do as you feel comfortable with, but do learn all the three approaches because all three have their own sets of advantages. This example again will take you a lot of time to get the hang of, so you will have to practice this. And again, please practice all the three. Don't just pick one and work on that. Make sure that you're comfortable with all the three different approaches. Excellent. So we've covered a long lecture and I'll see you for the next one.